Russell Wilson. And then you give him DK Metcalf or whatever that's going to look like. It's going to be probably something special. Aaron Rodgers, his redemption, his new situation, you know he's going to put up some numbers. Carson Wentz. I haven't even finished. I mean, that's where Cam is going to get put in terms of the visual, the optics. And then when you get into the counting numbers, we know he won't qualify just on those alone. And then it's going to be those special moments. And I'm not saying he's going to come short in moments, but he's going to come short when you combine it with the numbers that the others may have moments as well.
I think LeVar makes a great point, though. If you win the South with those two quarterbacks that have been MVPs, MVP candidates, Matt Ryan was an MVP just a couple of years ago. So if you can win that division and outduel those two guys, I think that would be, regardless of numbers, I think that would be the biggest feather in his cap if he can do that, because that division is loaded with some guys who can play.
I think he has an ego like a lot of guys in the league, but it's an ego backed up by competitiveness as well. A lot of guys have egos, but they're not super competitive. Cam, I think in a positive way, is like, oh, y'all think Patrick Mahomes is what I am? Because I believe, even with the injured shoulders, with the repair, Cam Newton believes and has an argument, I'm the most talented quarterback in this league.
Is this LeBron and Steph in football? Like, a little bit, right? Like, oh, that little cute stuff over there, okay.
Another personal point to add to it, as Mark made so clear and so well stated, I've had a lot of time during my time with Under Armour, spending a lot of time with Cam as well. And one of the things that you start to realize about him is his ability to carry the weight of what he always wanted to be. The things he went through when he was at Florida, how he ended up at Auburn, overcame the odds, ends up playing for a national championship game, wins a national championship game, wins the Heisman. He's all of these major things. But one thing you realize when you meet that man is his care for the younger generations, the things he does with his 7-on-7 programs and different things like that. He is constantly out there building that rapport and building that accountability. And a lot of times when you're looking at that MVP's position, a lot of it is driven by how the community feels about you as well. You know, it's not just literally coming down to numbers as to why somebody is going to be anointed the guy that is the MVP of this league. A lot of times it's the story that is attached to and associated with the guy who's getting that award. And Cam has been in this community. There are so many people that are relying on him, so many people that dream of being who he is based off of direct interaction with this young man. And I think that the way he has conducted himself, and a lot of it for me, I felt it came after the car accident. Now, it could have been, some of it had maybe to do with the daughter and him having a family life, but I felt he was a different person altogether, spiritually and motivated in a different way after that situation took place. Again, I look at Cam and what it is, why he plays the game the way that he plays it, and a lot of it is based upon what he represents to the people who are watching him. And those are dangerous people. When you're watching somebody who's playing for something that's more than themselves, that's a dangerous person to deal with.
All right, we don't have a lot of time, but I love the comments he made to Ron Rivera that were captured on All or Nothing, expressing a concern about, hey, man, we don't want any distractions. I think it's reflective of what the overwhelming majority of players think in the NFL. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, certainly agree. You know, that's a question as a retired player I got a lot. If you were an active player, would you have knelt? Would you have taken the part and kneeling before the anthem, during the anthem? And I was like, no. And it puts players, especially black players, in an impossible situation. If you don't kneel, you ain't down for the cause. Which is like, wait a minute. One, don't ever question my blackness. And two, don't ever demand that I prove my blackness. And I'm not going to use any ritual, anything of ceremony, anything that you think is going to try and bring some awareness and association of he's blacker than. And I think that's what Cam was talking about. Just like, look, it's going to ask a question of us that we don't want to answer and, frankly, shouldn't have to answer. He does a lot, as you said, in the community, in his world.
Why aren't you asking about that?
Yeah.
Ask me about that.
Now you want some singular act to define me as a black man. Or what's the consequences? And I think that Cam was trying to speak for all, black and white, don't put us in that position because it's just one moment, and it's only one moment of time.
I think one of the things in winning championships, and one of the reasons it's so hard, is you have to have an entire team that is focused on not individualism, but what can I do to serve the guy next to me? How can I help us be a better team? How can I help us win a championship? How can I sacrifice for you? What can I do for you? And the problem is it puts you in an uncomfortable position. Even if you are kneeling, if you're not kneeling, you know what happens every time the locker room gets opened? Somebody needs to come to talk to you about it. And it gets to the point where now I got guys hiding in the weight room, hiding in the, you've been there, you've been in the locker room, we're hiding in the equipment room, we're hiding in the training room, because you just don't want to deal with it. And you know what that does when you're doing that? You lose connectivity as a team. You're hiding over here. It separates you, it compartmentalizes you, and all of a sudden we're not focused on winning anymore or sacrificing for one another. We got to answer questions that we don't want to answer, and that's a problem.
Yeah, I think it becomes a distraction. I don't think anyone, whether you fall on one side of it or the other, it becomes a distraction, and it is very difficult to win. It's very difficult to win. Now, some may be sitting here watching the show and they're saying, well, it's not about football. It's not about football. It's about standing up for what's right and what's wrong. And where I would not disagree with that being a point, a massive point, the reality of it is that it's interesting that that situation started with a different franchise. So wherever Kaepernick and Eric would have went to play, now it becomes their situation as well. So it now becomes a scenario of where, I think you mentioned it very well, is if we don't kneel now that he's here, we're not in support of him. And now you're creating a racial barrier. That could be a racial situation that is reflective of how you start viewing each other as teammates. Like, I'm feeling a certain type of way because we're having conversations about things that have nothing to do with our job. And in reality, there is a time and a place to stand up for the things that you believe in. I know people will say you use the platforms that you have to make a difference. You do. But there's a difference between being a follower and being a leader. And if leadership wasn't involved with them taking a stance, whatever their approach was to the flag situation, then you ride with that as a team and you figure out what you do. But as a leader, if you're saying we do not need this in our locker room, as a leader, you're supposed to know what the pulse of your locker room is. You're supposed to know if this is going to tear us apart, if this is going to confuse us, distract us, take us down the wrong lane. As a leader, you're supposed to know that. So to me, that was Cam using discernment. That's not him being in the house. That's not him being a sellout. That's him discerning the situation of, for us and at this time, for this team, this is not the right situation for us to be in as a team. And I think that is commendable as a leader.
All right, stick around. Later in the show, we'll give you our latest approval ratings for Cam Newton, and Uncle Jimmy will tell us what he thinks of the Panthers quarterback. Also,